What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we got a very small update in Call of Duty Vanguard, and this saw a nerf to the MP40, as well as a handful of changes to the various kill streaks in the game, including the spy plane and counter spy plane. So in today's video, I wanted to show you guys exactly what changed in game, rather than just reading patch notes out for you guys, so you can see how much of an impact this will actually make. And let's start it off with the nerf to the MP40. All they mentioned in the patch notes is they nerfed the damage range, but they didn't specify by how much. So I went in, I did the testing on this, and it turns out for our maximum damage range, where we can get a 3-shot kill to the torso, previously this was 15 meters, that has now been cut down to about 12.5 meters. So fairly small adjustment there, but that is something that will impact some gunfights here or there if you're fighting within that sort of threshold. However, this nerf didn't just apply to the maximum damage range, this also applied to our 4-shot kill range. Previously, our 4-shot kill range was about 28 meters, and now that's been cut down to roughly 24 meters. So in all, we saw a roughly 15% range reduction across the board for the MP40, which personally, I don't know if this was a necessary change, but I'm also not opposed to it, because the MP40 is definitely on the strong side, and it's not like they destroyed it with this update, they just made it a little bit weaker to open up some more room for other SMGs to come into play. So that's it when it comes to weapon balancing for this update. Now let's move on to the kill streak changes. There were a good handful. And let's first cover the bombing run. Now the bombing run was one of the ones that was frequently causing that server snapshot error, especially on larger maps if you were playing the Blitz game modes. And that apparently has been resolved with this. They say it should be resolved with this, so hopefully we'll be seeing no more of those server snapshot errors. But on top of this, they actually nerfed it in-game as well. So with this, they improved the flight path determination logic to further avoid damaging the player who called it in. And this is one where we kind of just have to wait and see how this plays out over time. It's not something that can be easily just tested in a custom game. So we'll have to see if this actually made improvements so it kills you less often if you're the one calling it in. But on top of this, they've also decreased the damage and damage radius of the bombs from the bombing run. So just a nerf across the board to this. It should be less lethal now. As for the next kill streak that was changed, this is the attack dogs, and this was actually a bit of a nerf technically to the attack dogs. It makes it easier to counter the attack dogs at least. What they've done is they've added an audio cue to further communicate the position of a nearby attack dog, and this is great. This is something I feel has been missing since the beginning of the game. A lot of the times, like, enemies have dogs in, you can hear them barking, but you just sort of hear them barking in the distance. You don't hear the individual dogs approaching you. Now, I did briefly test this out in custom games, and it appears to be working great. You can hear the dogs growling and barking as they're approaching you, and this is directional audio. You should now be able to tell when you have a dog coming after you, and that's excellent. It makes it feel a lot more immersive, and it also just makes sense that you can hear a dog approaching you. Now, let's move on to the spy plane and counter spy plane. And first up, with the counter spy plane, they've now made it so you can still call in a V2 rocket if the enemy has a counter spy plane in the air. And that's good to hear. That's something that shouldn't have existed in the first place, at least in my opinion. I don't think a 4 kill streak should be able to fully counter a 25 kill streak. However, it is worth noting that the counter spy plane still prevents you from calling in intel, spy planes, counter spy planes, so you can't call in your counter spy plane if they have a counter spy plane up, bombing runs, as well as local informants. Now, I do understand the counter spy plane preventing you from calling in like intel, spy plane, as well as local informants. I still don't quite understand why it would block a bombing run from coming in. And another thing is, I feel like you should be able to call your counter spy plane if the enemy has a counter spy plane in the air. Especially because many times I've found if you end up playing against a team where several people on their team are using counter spy planes and they just keep looping them over and over again, if you're using counter spy plane, you have no opportunity to call yours in ever. And I just don't think that one makes a whole lot of sense. So if it were up to me, I would have taken that just a step further. I would make it so counter spy plane doesn't prevent you from calling in bombing runs and doesn't prevent you from calling in your counter spy planes. In either case, that's not the only adjustment that was made. The second adjustment that was made to both the spy plane as well as the counter spy plane is they've made both of these enter and exit the play space significantly faster, which is designed to increase the amount of time where you can viably shoot at it with a launcher. Because as they enter the map, they come in really quickly and then they get to a point where they slow down, and that's really your optimal window for shooting it down with a launcher, and then it also exits. So let's start this off with the spy plane. Now previously, it would actually take about 25 seconds before the spy plane gets to the point where it's fully on the play space and it's rotated its wing and started to turn, which is also where it significantly starts slowing down, and this is where your optimal launcher window begins. So that's nearly half of the streak's total amount of active time before you can reasonably and consistently start shooting at it with a launcher. Then we only had a 15-second window when it had that slow down time where it was over the play space before it started exiting the map, which is where it accelerated and started leaving the map. And then that total time took about 20 seconds for a total duration of 60 seconds. So that's pretty crazy to me that we only had about 15 seconds for our optimal launcher window on a 60-second kill streak. Now, let's have a look at the post-patch values. It's going to take about 12 seconds for the spy plane to be coming into the map before it starts its slowdown, so significantly faster. It's actually twice as fast as before. Then we have a 30-second optimal launcher window. This is where it's traveling its slowest before it starts exiting the map, which takes about 18 seconds for, once again, a total duration of 60 seconds. So they've essentially doubled the window of time that we have to realistically shoot at that streak with a launcher, and that's great news. I think this is definitely a good update. Would have been nice to see this a really long time ago, but I'm glad we're at least seeing it now. And now let's have a look at the counter spy plane, which works quite a bit differently, especially pre-patch. Now pre-patch, the counter spy plane would come in a straight line and just fly across the map, rather than traveling in a circle around the map, which is what the spy plane does. But post-patch, they have changed that so it now does fly in a circle just like the regular spy plane. It no longer just does a straight line across the map. Additionally, pre-patch, it took about 30 seconds for the counter UAV to get to the point where it tilted its wing and it started its slowdown across the map. Then we only had about a 10-second window with the counter spy plane before it started exiting the map. And then that total time to exit was about 20 seconds for a total of 60 seconds in duration. Now, to be fair with the counter spy plane, you did have a little bit more freedom than that 10-second window because it did fly into the map so slowly that you could technically start shooting at it with the launcher earlier than that. But I still wanted to point out that optimal window was only 10 seconds out of a total of 60 seconds. Now, post-patch with the counter spy plane, it takes about 13 seconds for it to reach its optimal window when it first comes into the map. Then it starts flying in that circular pattern around the map, which is new. And our optimal window will last for about 27 seconds. After that, it once again takes 20 seconds to exit the map, where it's no longer optimal to be shooting at it with a launcher. And again, this leaves us with a total duration of 60 seconds, so our duration hasn't changed at all with this, but our optimal window for shooting at a launcher has pretty much doubled, just like with the spy plane. And this is once again a great step in the right direction. Now, personally, I still feel a 60-second duration for a 4 kill streak, especially one that prevents you from calling in your kill streaks. I think that's way overkill still, but at the very least, these are going to be a lot easier to deal with launchers, as well as guns, honestly, because they come a lot closer to the map for a longer period of time. You should be able to shoot these streaks down a lot more effectively than you could before this little update. But with that, that pretty much covers it for all of the gameplay altering changes that we saw with today's little update. Overall, definitely some nice steps in the right direction. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I am happy to see that they continue to give us these small updates that make the game a little bit better over time. Now, of course, these are just my opinions. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what did you think of this little update that we got today? Do you think these were generally good changes or bad changes? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.